Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is John Kodamal and I'm the technical lead for the ecosystem team based in San Francisco. And my team's been working on the Atlassian Marketplace for the last 9 months, and it's really been a labor of love for us. Originally, my team built the first version of the Universal Plugin Manager, and it's been awesome to see that project grow from being a user interface for managing plugins into a cornerstone technology of the Atlassian Marketplace. We spent a ton of time making the marketplace as easy to use for customers as possible, streamlining the purchasing process. But we've also spent a ton of effort making it easy for you, the vendor, to integrate your plugin and get it onto the marketplace. And that's what I'm actually going to be focusing the majority of this talk on. I want to talk about how you can get your plugin listed on the marketplace, set up pricing, and have it up for sale as quickly and as easily as possible. Part of that will be a technical dive into the licensing system that we've built into the marketplace. But first I want to talk about some of the features of the marketplace. I'm going to describe what the marketplace is, what it gives you, the plugin vendor, and maybe more importantly, what it gives to your customers. And so I'm going to walk through some of the features that you may have missed from, say, the keynote or from Jonathan's talk a few minutes ago. The first thing that I want to talk about, and the most salient feature in the Atlassian Marketplace, is the easy in-app purchase process. So we make it as easy as possible for you, for the customer that is, to purchase the plugin with one click, go off to our billing system, fetch a license, and install the license and have a functioning instance of that plugin as quickly as possible. This is a screenshot of the latest version of the Universal Plugin Manager, and you can see that there's a marketplace-enabled plugin here called Jira Timesheet Reports and Gadgets plugin, and there are buy and try buttons. If the user clicks on that button, they can grab a license and be up and running in minutes. One of the things that you may have missed is that there are additional purchase flows. So besides purchasing an add-on from within the application itself, you can actually purchase an add-on from marketplace.atlassian.com, which is a rebranded version of what was formerly called the Atlassian Plugin Exchange. There's a screenshot here of the Zen Foundation plugin. Now, if you look at this plugin, you'll notice that we've very prominently displayed the pricing for that plugin, as well as buy and try buttons, so that you can, again, purchase the plugin or fetch a license, an evaluation license for that plugin. Another purchase flow that you may not have seen is the ability to purchase a marketplace plugin from within my.atlassian.com directly. The use case we have in mind for this is if a customer goes in and wants to purchase, say, Jira or one of our other products, they can go ahead and bundle marketplace plugins with that purchase. So it's the same consistent experience to purchase one of the marketplace plugins as it is to purchase one of our products. The new Universal Plugin Manager also offers enhanced in-app branding possibilities. So when a customer goes and searches for your plugin within the Universal Plugin Manager, they get new things like an icon, a banner, and a logo that prominently display your plugin. They also get new media opportunities like the ability to see screenshots or YouTube videos of your plugin. They can use this information to make important decisions about whether or not they want to try your plugin out, evaluate it, or whatever the case may be. The new marketplace also provides a bunch of enhanced discoverability options. This is again a screenshot of the latest Universal Plugin Manager, and I'm showing and highlighting what we call the banner carousel. This is a rotatable set of banners for plugins. You can click on any of these banners and you'll be taken to an expanded details view of that plugin, from which you can then purchase or download or install that plugin. We've also dramatically enhanced the search facilities on marketplace.atlassian.com and within the Universal Plugin Manager, making it far easier for customers to find plugins that they're interested in. We also provide a number of built-in billing and reporting options. So when customers purchase your add-on, they go through our billing system, my.atlassian.com. The same familiar cart and purchase and sign-on experience that they're already familiar with from purchasing the Atlassian product that they have. For you, the vendor, we provide an enhanced reporting service. So you can track in near real time evaluations, sales, and so on and so forth. The new marketplace also allows you to drive renewals for your add-on. The first capability that I want to show in that regard is, again, from the Universal Plugin Manager. There's a new plugin notifications user interface. With this interface, admins get notifications and messages whenever a plugin needs attention. In other words, if the license is about to expire or if their evaluation is ending, and they can take action on those notifications. Here we've got a screenshot again of the UPM, and it's telling me that Greenhopper's license is about to expire, and the maintenance period for Jira Timesheets plugin has expired. If I click on any of these notifications, I'll be taken to the plugin details for those specific plugins where I can take action. I can renew those licenses, or I can upgrade my instance if that's what's necessary. We also unlock the ability for you to drive renewals through Kitty, which is our own automated emailing system. So when a customer evaluates your plugin and that evaluation is about to expire, they'll automatically get a renewal email from Kitty. You can take advantage of this in your own system as well. I hope you agree that all of this sounds pretty awesome. And if you agree with me, your next question might be, how do I actually get onto the marketplace? And I want to focus the majority of my talk on that. In my mind, it's a simple three-stage process. First, you simply have to build your plugin. We've spent a lot of effort making this as easy as possible for you. You're able to take advantage of all the tools and features and APIs that we've been building for the past several years, five or more years, in the Atlassian ecosystem. Second, once your plugin is built, you need to add licensing to your plugin. And the way that occurs is you basically add support for a new licensing library that we've added to the Universal Plugin Manager. You incorporate this licensing system into your plugin, and once you've done that, you're ready for step 3, which is to actually just list your add-on onto the marketplace. The marketplace has a slightly more stringent approval process than for free plugins, and so I'm going to actually talk you through that as well. I'll describe all the steps that we go through in order for you to get your plugin listed on the marketplace. So again, let me talk about building your plugin. You can sell pretty much any plugin on the marketplace. As I've said, there are no restrictions on the APIs that you can use. In fact, we've made the marketplace available for product versions that were released as many as 2 years ago, before the marketplace was even conceived. I'll talk about how we made that possible technically, but I think that's a huge win for vendors. You can even build cross-product plugins. So you can build a plugin that works in both Jira, Confluence, and even Fisheye or Crucible if you want, and have that work as well. There are only a couple restrictions on the marketplace plugins you can sell. First is that you cannot sell a marketplace plugin to an on-demand customer. That is on our near-term roadmap, so it's something we'll be addressing soon. Second is remote apps. So you cannot yet sell remote applications through the marketplace, and that will be coming soon as well. Once you've built your plugin, the next step is to add licensing support for it. This is the main technical task that is introduced by the marketplace. So I want to talk about this in a great degree of detail. Basically, you're going to use our new licensing library. The licensing library provides you with a number of different pieces of functionality. First, you can store and retrieve plugin licenses. Second, you can validate and enforce licenses. So once a license has been entered, we give you the ability to tell whether that license is valid or whether it's been expired or so on and so forth. Third, we give you APIs that will allow you to drive the sales and renewal pipelines, and I'll talk about that shortly. All of these things together allow you to create a simple and consistent user interface for license administration. Now, you might be asking me why you need to build a license user interface. Perhaps the screenshots you've seen from the keynote or from earlier in Jonathan's talk, you've taken a look at these and you've seen that the Universal Plugin Manager is the piece that actually provides the license management UI. And that's true, but this ties into our backwards compatibility story. We've made the marketplace available for product versions that are as old as 2 years. And these older product versions have older versions of the UPM. What we've done is we've provided you the ability to sell your marketplace plugin even if that newest version of the UPM, the licensing aware version of the UPM, isn't available. I'll talk about how that's possible, but basically from your perspective, you're responsible for providing a simple user interface for license management. The coolest thing though is that we provide a seamless upgrade path to the newest version of the UPM. So from the customer's perspective, if they have an older UPM, they'll be entering and managing their license on the screen that you provide, although we help generate it. And once the new Universal Plugin Manager is installed, or if the customer upgrades their instance to a newer product version that has the UPM 2.0 or greater bundled with it, then the UPM will just take over. All of that happens seamlessly. The customer doesn't have to restart or reinstall your plugin or anything like that. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about how to incorporate the licensing library into your plugin, and I'm going to do this from the perspective of using our Atlassian Plugin SDK. I'm going to assume that you're using the latest version of the SDK, which at the current time is 3.10.4. And I'm going to use a new code generation facility that ships with that SDK. You're going to use a command called Atlas create Jira plugin module. Note that there's a separate similar command for every Atlassian product. So for example, there's an Atlas create Confluence plugin module if you're creating a Confluence plugin. So you're going to run this command, and you'll be presented with a set of options. You want to choose licensing API support. When you choose that option, the code generator will go ahead and generate a bunch of code for you. All of that is required to license your plugin. Most of the code generation is completely automatic. Once it's executed, there are basically only two steps that you have to do. The first is that you want to customize your license administration UI. You might want to take the generic UI that we generate for you automatically and tailor it to your plugin's own configuration screens, for example. The second thing that you need to do is actually add code to enforce licensing. Again, we provide you with an API that tells you what the state of the license is. It's then up to you to enforce that state. So we don't actually enforce the license for you. We don't actually force you down a particular path towards license enforcement. It's up to you to decide how you want to enforce your license. We offer some best practices, so our advice is to enforce the licensing at every plugin entry point. A plugin entry point is roughly any place where the user can interact with your plugin. So you're going to want to insert calls to our licensing API, ask whether the license is valid at those points, and if it's not, then take some action. And that action can be anything that you desire. It can be as simple as displaying a banner or disabling some functionality in the plugin. It's entirely up to you. So let's go ahead and actually look at the code in the licensing library. And we'll start with the component that's responsible for storing and retrieving licenses. That component is called the third-party plugin license storage manager, and it provides a number of utility methods, and I'll walk through them kind of one at a time. The first is a method called getLicense. You'll notice that it doesn't take any parameters. In particular, it doesn't take your plugin's key or any information about your plugin. And that's kind of a cool piece of technology that we used. We used some OSGI magic to provide every marketplace add-on with their own customized copy of the third-party license storage manager. So every plugin basically gets their own version that can only access that plugin's license. That provides a degree of sandboxing between marketplace plugins. You can't access any other marketplace plugin's license, and they can't access yours. Notice that this returns an option plugin license. So it returns a plugin license, which is a parsed representation of the license, and it's optional. So if the plugin doesn't have a license, that value will be none. The next method is a method for setting the license string. This is used for the user to enter the license into the license administration screen. There are two additional methods. One is called isUPM licensing aware. You use this to determine whether or not a marketplace aware version of the Universal Plugin Manager is available. Again, if a later version, if 2.0 or greater of the UPM is available, this function will return true, and it's up to you to then delegate the license management responsibility to the Universal Plugin Manager and stop using your own screen. The fourth method is called getPluginManagementURI, and this is basically a handy convenience method. What it does is it provides you with a link to the Universal Plugin Manager, and that link is customized to your plugin. It will actually expand the plugin details for your specific plugin. The use case we have in mind for this method is that once the new Universal Plugin Manager is available, you can call this method and redirect users over to the UPM for license management. So let's talk about how to actually validate and enforce licenses. Here's a little code snippet envisioning how you would actually use our license manager. Once you've injected the license manager into your code, it's a pretty simple process. You can just ask the license manager whether or not there's a license, and if there is, you can check to see if the license is in any error states. For example, if it's expired or the user count doesn't match the product user count, and then you can handle those errors individually. Otherwise, it's a valid license and your plugin should just operate as normal. If there's no license at all, then this is where you actually introduce your own enforcement code. You can handle the unlicensed scenario any way you want, as I mentioned earlier. You can put up a banner, you can disable certain functionality. That is entirely up to you. So let's talk about another component that we provide within the licensing library. It's a component that's used to drive the sales and renewals workflows. And it's called the Atlassian Marketplace URI Factory. There are a handful of methods on here, and I'm going to talk through a couple of them. The most important are the getBuy plugin URI and getTry plugin URI methods. These methods actually interact with our billing system. So what they'll do is they'll generate links to our billing system, and the links that they generate will automatically pre-populate a cart with your plugin, with the correct plugin edition that matches the product that the customer has. So this is basically used for the one-click buy and evaluation processes. There are utility methods that tell you whether the plugin is buyable or tryable. So putting that all together, you first create a callback URI. The callback URI is passed to the URI factory and is used to determine where the license should be posted back. Once you've created the callback URI, you can ask the URI factory if the plugin is buyable. If it is, you're going to display a link, basically a button with a link to our billing system, and then you fetch that link from the URI factory. And again, that will go ahead and pre-populate a cart with your add-on and the correct version of your add-on. The logic is exactly the same for tryable plugins, and I've just duplicated it below. And so putting that all together into a license administration screen is fairly straightforward. In fact, the code generator generates most of that for you. And this is a screenshot of what you'll get by default. Now, it's up to you to tailor this if you want. You can take this and incorporate it into your own configuration screens or whatever. The important thing is that the logic, the source code behind this, is fairly easy to take out and tailor to your own particular needs. The coolest thing about this is that there's a seamless upgrade path to the new Universal Plugin Manager. So with the new UPM, we'll actually take over license management responsibilities for you. The APIs that I've just talked to you about give you all the logic that you need in order to determine when to delegate to the new Universal Plugin Manager. And again, all of that happens completely seamlessly. Once the UPM is installed, it'll take over seamlessly and the user doesn't have to do anything. So if you're like me, you understand that generated code is a great way to get started. But once that code is generated, it's part of your code base, and it's code that you maintain. It's your responsibility. So it's kind of in your best interest to understand what the generated code does. And so I want to talk through that a little bit. In my mind, the generated code can be broken down into 3 pieces of functionality. The first is a set of changes that are required to actually add a dependency on the licensing library and allow you to call our APIs. The second bit of the generated code actually enables licensing within your plugin. The third is some of the seamless upgrade magic that I talked about a moment ago. It allows us to seamlessly convert from you managing your own license screen to you deferring to the Universal Plugin Manager. And there's some code that supports that process. So let's take this piece by piece, and we'll start with the licensing library dependencies. There are 2 changes that get made, one to your pom.xml and one to your Atlassian Plugin XML. In your pom.xml, we'll actually add 2 new dependencies, one on a library called Licensing API and one on the UPM API. The Licensing API is what provides those components that I showed you before, the Plugin License Storage Manager and the URI Factory. The UPM API just provides some utility methods that you need, things like option and so forth. Now, to actually use those components, you're actually going to make 2 changes to your Atlassian Plugin XML. One is for the third-party Plugin License Storage Manager. That gets created as a component, which allows you to do constructor injection or whatever into your code. And there's the same change to the same component addition for the Atlassian Marketplace URI Factory. Again, those are pretty simple changes, one to your pom.xml and one to your Atlassian Plugin XML. The second bit of generated code is centered around enabling licensing. And again, there's a change to your Atlassian Plugin XML. There's also a change to your manifest file. Starting with the change to your Atlassian Plugin XML, we'll add a new parameter to your plugin info section. And it's called Atlassian Licensing Enabled. And it's set to true. What this does is it tells the UPM that it should display a user interface for license management. Now, if you omit this, or if somebody tries to hack your plugin by removing this parameter, licensing will still be enforced, so there's no attack vector here where you can just disable licensing for a marketplace plugin by removing some string in a text file. This is just, again, used to determine whether or not the UPM should show a licensing screen. Now, to your manifest file, we actually add a new element called the Atlassian build date. This is actually used to determine renewal notifications and so forth. So we need to know when the plugin was actually built in order to do those calculations. Now, the last bit of the generated code is all centered around the upgrade magic that I've been alluding to this entire talk. And in order to really understand what that generated code does, I kind of need to describe a little bit about the architecture of the marketplace, specifically the way the Universal Plugin Manager and the licensing API work. The way this works is, in order to support backwards compatibility with older versions of the Universal Plugin Manager, our generated code will ship your plugin with a bundled copy of the licensing library. It's bundled and will be automatically deployed as a separate plugin at runtime. So basically, your plugin will be installed, and it'll detect whether or not the UPM is available, a newer version of the UPM is available. And if it's not, it'll dynamically install this licensing API. Now, one cool thing is if other marketplace plugins come along, they'll detect that this licensing API is already available, and they'll connect to it automatically. Now, if the user comes along and either upgrades their Jira instance or their product instance, or even updates the Universal Plugin Manager itself, this is where the seamless upgrade magic happens. Your plugin and every other marketplace plugin will automatically rewire. A wire is basically a way for components to communicate in an OSGI system. Your plugin will automatically rewire to the Universal Plugin Manager completely seamlessly. And so will every other marketplace plugin. Now, in order to support that upgrade magic, we had to add a couple things to your generated code. All of these changes appear in your pom.xml. I'll talk through them one at a time. The first is a new dependency on something called the plugin license storage library. The second is a new set of instructions. These are OSGI manifest instructions. The first one is called private package, and the second one is called dynamic import package. The interesting one is kind of the dynamic import package one. This dynamic import package directive allows you to dynamically rewire or reconnect to the UPM when it's detected. Now, the last little change is a configuration for a Maven plugin called the Maven dependency plugin. And what this does is it allows us to bundle that plugin license storage library within your artifact as an embedded plugin. Dynamically, what will happen is your plugin will have some additional code that will automatically install that plugin if necessary and then wire to it via the dynamic import package magic. Okay, so that's really all there is to the licensing component. It's fairly straightforward to introduce licensing to your library. The code is very simple and the API is fairly straightforward. That is really the only technical task that's required to list your plugin on the marketplace. The remaining tasks are all centered around actually publishing your plugin onto marketplace.atlassian.com. And that process has a couple steps that I want to talk about one by one. First, we require a little bit of additional marketing information to be bundled with your add-on, so I'll talk about that. The second, when you list your plugin on the marketplace, you need to take additional steps to set pricing information and also payment details. We need to know how much you want to sell your plugin for, and we need to know how to get your share of the profits back to you. Finally, marketplace plugins have a much more stringent approval process. So we want to make sure that customers have the best possible experience in the marketplace. And to that end, we want to make sure that everything in the plugin works with respect to the licensing API. So the plugin approval process is not generally about general quality, but rather what we're validating is that the code generation steps that you've gone through and the incorporation of our licensing support worked correctly. So let's talk about setting up your listing. If you've never added a listing to marketplace.atlassian.com before, it's a fairly straightforward process. We ask you to enter a bunch of metadata about your plugin, and some of that metadata has to be required and in a certain state for marketplace plugins. First, your plugin must be a plugins version 2 plugin. If you have a plugins 1 plugin, you need to convert it to a plugins 2 plugin, and we have some documentation on that. Second, your plugin must be deployable. A deployable plugin is essentially one that can be installed automatically for the Universal Plugin Manager. We want all marketplace plugins to have that same seamless one-click buy experience, so all marketplace plugins must be deployable. Third, your plugin must be supported and you must provide support for it. So the marketplace, Atlassian at least, does not directly provide support for marketplace plugins. However, we want all customers to have some kind of channel to address their questions or ask for support. So we require that you tell us what your support channels are. Those support channels can be as simple as a contact email, or they can be more sophisticated like a forum or integration through a system like Answers. The fourth thing that you need is that you need to specify that your listing is paid via Atlassian. Paid via Atlassian basically means that we're going to take care of payment for you, and you're going to go through our billing system and so on and so forth. Another option is paid via vendor. That means that the plugin is commercial, but you as a plugin vendor are going to manage the payment system, and you're not taking advantage of those features of the marketplace. And again, it's important to note that free plugins are always welcome on the marketplace as well. We're not precluding you from listing free plugins, even though we've rebranded the Atlassian Plugin Exchange. If you select paid via Atlassian, you'll be required to check off this box, which is accept marketplace agreement. There is a marketplace publisher agreement. You should read through it. It's a bunch of legalese, and you have to agree to those terms before listing your plugin on the marketplace. Okay, once you've set up the initial listing process, you need to set up payment and pricing details. Pricing is fairly straightforward to set up. There's a simple screen. Will allow you to set the commercial price basically for every product edition. So a starter license, 25 user license, so on and so forth. There's a convenient drop-down dialog on the screen that allows you to set your prices as a percentage of the product price. Notice we're not actually locking you into those product prices. So if the price of Jira, say, changes and you set your price to 50% of Jira, your plugin price will not be updated automatically. This is just a convenience drop-down to set your prices once. Now, we automatically compute the derived prices from those initial prices that you list. So once you've set your commercial prices, we'll automatically calculate the renewal prices, the academic renewal prices, and the community licenses are always free. There are a couple restrictions on how you can set prices. You can only set prices once every, this slide actually says per quarter, but we've recently changed that to every 30 days. So you can set your prices once every 30 days, and you have a 24-hour grace period. So within 24 hours of making a pricing change, you can make amendments to that pricing change. Once you set up your pricing, you need to set up payment details. This is fairly straightforward. We just need some way to actually get your bank information and send payments out to you. Marketing assets. So every marketplace plugin requires an additional set of marketing assets. These include plugin icons, logos, and banners. And they appear in two places. First, in your marketplace listing itself. So on marketplace.atlassian.com, the website, you'll see a place where you can enter a banner, a logo, and a screenshot for your plugin. Second, there's a separate copy of these marketing assets that needs to go into your plugin artifact. And the reason that they need to go into the artifact is so that we can display those assets even if the customer isn't connected to marketplace.atlassian.com. So the way that you do that is by adding 3 new parameters to the plugin info of your Atlassian plugin XML. And those parameters are just the plugin icon, plugin logo, and plugin banner. Once you've added the marketing assets then and finished the submission process, then you'll go through an approval queue. I want to talk a little bit about the approval queue because it's a little bit more detailed than our normal approval process for free plugins, for example. Our approval process has 2 stages. The first is called technical approval. That's where we'll actually take your plugin artifact, install it into the product, and make sure that the licensing behaves as expected. We won't actually evaluate your plugin in terms of quality. We won't actually test the functionality very significantly. What we're focusing on here during the technical approval process is the licensing aspects. Are you adhering to our terms and conditions, and have you implemented the licensing library correctly? The second approval process is final approval, and that's where we just do a sanity check on your pricing and your marketing assets and make sure that everything is in order and that you're ready to go onto the marketplace. So I'll start with the technical approval. We actually use, so basically what we do is we run a script called check plugin. Now, eventually I'd like to make that part of the Atlassian Plugin SDK. There will be a command eventually called something like, Atlas validate marketplace plugin, something to that effect. But in the meantime, I've provided a link to the actual script that we use. And what this does is it actually goes through and makes sure that the code generator was run correctly and that all of the requirements that we need for licensing are working. After running the check plugin script, we'll actually boot up the product via a command called atlas run standalone, which is a part of our standard SDK. And what we'll do is we'll test 2 product versions. So we'll take basically the endpoints of the compatibility you specify. For example, if you say you're compatible with Jira 5.0 to 5.0.6, we'll actually boot Jira 5.0 and 5.0.6, and we'll test your product. We'll test license enforcement. We'll make sure that you're doing something to enforce that the license is there, whether that be by disabling some functionality or putting up warning banners. We'll also test the UPM upgrade path. So we'll boot the product with an older version of the Universal Plugin Manager where applicable, and actually go through the upgrade process, install a new version of the UPM, and make sure that it takes over the licensing seamlessly. And that's pretty much it for technical approval. And once you've gone through technical approval, we'll go through a final approval process, and this is pretty straightforward. We're just going to check your banner, icon, and logos. We'll do it both in your marketplace listing and in your plugin artifact, and then we'll go through and check your pricing. And this is largely just a sanity check. We don't have too many restrictions on how your pricing needs to work, but we will make sure that the prices make sense. For example, they don't decrease as you increase in user tiers or anything like that. We'll also check that you provide vendor support details, so we'll make sure that there's some way for our customers to get in contact with you if they have a problem with your plugin. Finally, we require that you have a contact on the Marketplace mailing list. So for the Marketplace, we have a list that we'd like you to subscribe to. And on this list, we basically provide announcements and information about the Marketplace. So when a new version of the licensing library comes out, or if vendors have questions, there's basically an open forum for them to communicate. We want to make sure that all these important announcements get communicated to you, the vendor, so we do require that you add yourself as a contact to the Marketplace mailing list. Now, if you need more help, there are a ton of opportunities. This Friday, there are Marketplace workshops. In the Marketplace workshop, we'll basically walk through the licensing process. So if you give us a plugin that you have, we'll go ahead and walk you through the process of adding licensing to it. Or if you want to start from scratch, we'll walk through with a fresh plugin and show you how to add licensing to it. You can sign up at this URL. There's a lightning talk on Friday on publishing your plugin. Finally, we have experts available in the Atlassian Guru Room, and I'll actually make myself available at the Atlas Bar from 12 to 2:30 if you have any questions about that. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Codegeist, which is our add-on development contest. Again, there are over $45,000 in prizes up for grabs. Go to codegeist.com and submit your add-on. Here's a series of resources that are available to you, documentation and tutorials on the Marketplace. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.